Good morning, Merry Marvelites. This is Kate taking over the Marvel Movie Talk podcast. I'm joined by Eric and
Hello,
Christian.
hello, Captain, my captain.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Geek and Love. We have a little bit of a special Marvel movie podcast talk because we've had so much Marvel come out recently, and we're probably like halfway through phase 4. What do you think, Christian? About halfway?
Yeah, I mean phase 5 isn't even in sight yet, but
Mhm.
we've got so much coming out next year that I think we might be at the halfway point. I'll review while we talk, but I think that's accurate that we're in the at the median
At the
speed bump.
median
Yes.
aspect of the phase 4 of Marvel. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take some people and talk about what the meta theming of this phase might be. It seems like Marvel goes through these phases, and they use each phase to talk about a certain aspect of heroism, and each movie kind of relates to that theme in some way, and that character expands on that theme in some way. And we're going to look at phase 4, what that theme could be, not only with the Disney MCU television world, but also the movies that they are doing. We are not including the Netflix world in this discussion because I don't think it was done by Kevin Feige. We are only looking at those properties, and then talking about where they might be headed, not only with the theme, but with the overall plots of the rest of phase 4. Sound good? Great. You got no choice. Um, so we're going to start with the properties that came out. Actually, let's start with phase 1 through 3. What I thought the theming was, especially for the first phase, was with great power comes great responsibility. And with all the origin stories, the second theme was more about questioning that power and questioning that heroism. And the third was about the legacy of that heroism, especially with the sacrifice. Is there like any broad strokes, Eric, that you saw um, in those three themes, just so we have a place to bounce off from for our current discussion?
I think the great power comes great responsibility, and of course,
And great with great
Dad's
why
with
would you
great
wrong.
wait?
Dad's wrong.
with great canines come great.
With an Australian Shepherd comes non-stop noise.
That's the Yahoo Serious of shepherds,
I
apparently.
don't think actually on that train of thought, do any of the Marvel heroes have pets?
Whoa. Mark Spector's
Well,
got
we got the
goldfish.
DC Super Pets.
Yeah, we do have super
We
pets coming,
do.
but yeah, I think everybody's too busy and they know that it's a responsibility to take care of a pet. It's
Great
like Peter
power.
Parker's not going to have a cat. I mean,
That'd
I
be
can't.
hilarious.
But I do think you can make a killer short about being like, I don't know, like the dog walker for Captain America.
Oh my god, that'd
Like,
be great.
you're called always last second.
Always
Hey,
last minute.
so I'm overseas for a couple days fighting Hydra. Yeah, I left some kibble out, so a few times. Great, thank you. And then
Or you go
the
into
line
Tony
always
Stark's
goes
house.
dead.
You go into Tony Stark's house to change the kitty litter, and you put the key on a hook, and it's the wrong hook, and then the wall
And the wall totally
descends and
shifts.
spins around and all that. That's phase 6, though. What
Got
we're
it.
talking
Right.
about, the Marvel Super
Like
Pets.
the basics.
Yeah.
Right. but I think I mean, great power, great responsibility. Yeah, phase 1. It's interesting too because the fun of Marvel is like they're all like reluctant heroes, right? Like,
Mm,
especially in that phase 1. I mean, think like unlikely heroes, Thor, Iron Man. Captain America is the exception in that he had the heart of a lion, but
no power.
the body of a snail, and
Yeah,
yet,
I mean
right, he had no
he
power.
signed up for it and he was
Right,
willing,
right, right,
but
right.
Steve Rogers, you look at him in the beginning of that film, could not have been a more unlikely hero for sure. I
Yeah.
agree with everything you're saying, Eric. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he was built for it. It's funny when you think about all the sort of initial gang, like he was the one most built for this, which is, I
Right.
love the irony of that. Like the one with the least imposing figure was the one who was most ready made to just take on that mantle. and was all about like understood the responsibility and understood the sacrifice from the word go. I mean, he really was. He was ready.
Right. Christian, what do you think about phase two? Is that an accurate, the questioning of that heroism that has been established? Because in phase two, they also started bringing in new heroes. Like, we got, well, we named her Scarlet Witch later, but we got Wanda Maximoff, and we got a different kind of type of hero that was more questioning the power that they had, not just the ability to lead.
Age of Ultron literally introduces the topic of worthiness, and specifically who can wield the hammer, and I think that like if you read like original runs of a lot of these characters, there's a number of times where they ask these questions. When anyone receives a power, this wouldn't really apply to mutants, but it's like, am I worthy of having this? Should someone else have been given super soldier serums? Should someone else have been bitten by a radioactive spider, and living up to the expectations? So I think that even though it is someone who was not contractually or legally able to appear in the early phases, the great power, with great power comes great responsibility kind of just sort of looms through everyone. And to Eric's point, they are mostly reluctant, and part of the reason why is the Wayne's World were not worthy of being superheroes.
Yeah. And then for the third phase as legacy, do you think that's an accurate thing? Not just for the Iron Man, but like, where do you end up after, everything? Because we have Iron Man, and we have Cap kind of going off in their own zones, or going off on their own way, and kind of finishing their journey. And I thought that was it for a little bit. And also, could we put Black Widow in phase 3 technically? Because that's when her story takes place, or does she actually end up in phase 4? What do we think?
Well, I think it's interesting. She's interesting because she first shows up. We're a team. She first shows up in Iron Man 2. And you want to talk. You're talking about how Eric. You mentioned how Steve was basically engineered for this. I mean, Natasha, obviously one of many, but she was taken at a young age, and it was basically not bred for it in the literal sense, but she was conditioned and turned into this thing. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about Natasha is that she was created not for any sort of sense of goodness. She was basically a weapon, and one of many weapons. So the realization that she has is honestly still a story that has not been told on screen. I mean, between long before the Black Widow movie, I mean, we get to see her flashback, we see the Red Room, we see all that, but the moment we don't actually see her realize, like, I can't do this anymore. We have allusions to Budapest with Clint, but we don't actually see her. What's the opposite of a heel turn in wrestling, Eric? I feel like you would know.
Face turn.
See, that's
face
good.
Turn.
Yeah. I'm glad you both know more about wrestling than me. I will take that pride.
I just realized you knew about wrestling, Eric, and now I know.
No, Eric has talked more about it, but I do remember now that Kate's schedule once dictated, well, I got to make it for WrestleMania, so I forgot. But in any case, it's interesting. I think Natasha, because of when she was introduced, yes, we got more about her. Technically, that is during phase 4, right? Black Widow. But I think it because of the timeline it's set in, and I don't know. I think her story was really already told when we met her, I mean, in terms of those struggles. So, yeah.
Cool.
And one thing, it's funny, Kate. It's like, I really love that you brought up this like topic of like thematic link and kind of what connects these movies beyond plot, which is story, right? Story is theme, story is character and emotion.
Wong, that's what connects these movies.
Wong.
Right. And by the way, there was a great article I came across briefly. It was like Wong is basically MCU's secret weapon.
Yes,
I think it's so
that's a great
true.
point.
So glad he survived. I was worried about him, and
I was terrified.
Spoiler alert that he survives.
Well,
No,
maybe.
I'm
Or
kidding. I'm
does
kidding.
it?
Yeah.
But phase 3 is it's funny. Like and I could send the link over to y'all.
Mhm.
The posters. It's funny when you see the posters lined up because I'm like
Yeah.
looking at the image. They get more colorful in phase 3. But
Yes.
phase 3, so much of it is about tearing each other apart from the inside, like learning how to work together. Even though I know the first Avengers was about that, but really, like a lot of the movies from phase 3, literally, you have a movie called Civil War.
Yeah.
And then the Guardians, how they all have to figure out how to, Guardians 2, like they crash because Rocket and Star-Lord are arguing about who's at the helm.
Right.
Black Panther, which is really about that idea of like who do we support? Because in essence, I mean, right, the climax of Black Panther is a civil war of its own kind. So,
Mhm.
it's a it's a
And
theme
it
I
was
didn't
a
really
hostile
think about.
takeover. It was,
Right,
"You're not
right, right,
doing
right.
it right."
Exactly, and it was like half of them were on board and half were not. I mean, Black Panther very spoke to the now, unfortunately,
And
and
even by
so
the end, Black Panther was like, "You know what? He was right."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But keep
And
going, yeah. I
and
love
we
that.
even like Doctor Strange, right? There's that sort of split, which picks up, of course, in the newest one, but in like the first one, the idea of like who should be wielding this power and like
Yeah.
by what cost do you do things. So yeah, I found like as I kind of revisited this with your topic, Kate, I was like, like so much of phase 3 is about sort of almost like things getting pulled apart from the inside,
Yeah.
and then the climax of that being, of course, um Endgame, and how that was, literally Avengers Assemble,
Yeah.
and how
And
they
come
needed,
back together.
yeah, so it took us lots of movies to get them all together lined
Yeah.
up.
Or you
And
can
that's
even
the moment that, they have fan reaction videos of that moment for a reason. Yeah.
Or you could even argue that Infinity War, it's almost like that reaction that Game of Thrones fans had when it's like
Hmm.
all of the families are tearing each other apart, and the fans are like, "Hey, hey, the White Walkers are hey, there's like a bigger thing.
Over there.
No, you're gonna ignore. Okay, cool, cool." And then they come in, and then that was disappointing. As a Game of Thrones fan, I was very disappointed, but that's the story that they chose to roll with.
I don't
And
think you were alone in calling that last season disappointing. I
no,
That's a
but
hill that's
even
pretty crowded.
yeah, it's a good hill to stand on. It is not
Yeah.
Mount Everest. We all keep each other warm up there. It's great. Um, but then in an Infinity War, you literally have tearing everybody kind of leaving each other, and so it's like once you tear each other apart, but then you have somebody snap half of the world out of existence. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh shoot, this is what I'm like without all of these people. This is what I'm like without the people I'm fighting with. And I think that was nice about Doctor Strange too, was um, having the two characters, Doctor West and Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, who did get blipped and has no existence, and Doctor West, who stayed, who wasn't
Well,
blipped and who lost everything.
I think he said. I think he also he said it happened to him too,
Yeah, I
Oh,
but
think he blipped
his
oh,
quiet died.
so he came
And then
home
from
to
his
get his
brother.
cat.
and then after his cat, I think he says cats plural, and then he says and my brother. So it's actually like a great moment. That I think I only caught the and my brother the second time I saw it, but
I haven't
that's
seen
a
it a second
light
time.
spoiler for Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's
That's
It,
okay.
Yeah.
my wife had a funny comment about that. She's like, "Why does that guy have to suffer so much? Like, what did he do wrong?" And it's a good, and
Sometimes
like, and now
He
he
sometimes
was
stole
it's
back
not about
chicks
there.
in
that.
the
Yeah.
first Doctor Strange.
He was kind of a dick, but he tried, and then also Doctor Strange gave him the scalpel, and like
Well,
basically,
Yeah.
In the first one, he's the one who was working
he's
on the ancient one, and
Yeah.
He's
he
like
came
he's
back
like
there.
Nordberg in the Naked Gun movies. If you take out of it who played Nordberg for a second and how much he deserves everything he got, but just sort of from a storytelling standpoint, yes.
So now that we have a foundation of like, okay, these are the basic, and like in future episodes, hopefully we'll go through more of the themes of each movie. But now that we have a broad stroke for everybody, um, phase 4, and just so I can reiterate for everybody, is WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Hawkeye, Spider-Man, No Way Home, Moon Knight, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Am I forgetting anything, gents?
No, I mean, they lump Black Widow in with it,
Right.
mostly because of the end scene, I guess, because then it sort of feeds into Hawkeye, I guess.
Yeah.
But I really don't consider it because of when the story is.
Yeah.
You can sort of take Yelena out of it and put her in Phase 4 because that's
That's what
when
I
we got
was
to know her. Yeah,
thinking. Is
but
that, for the consequence aspect of Black Widow, because that was the first movie that we got was Black Widow. And what
right.
I liked about that movie is that we both got the consequence of what they went through, but we're taking Yelena into the future and we're leaving Black Widow in the past. So it's like we're
Yeah,
gonna get Yelena dealing with that consequence more, especially since she was out of the Red Room programming more recently.
right.
We
Yeah,
start the movie with her breaking programming.
and just because we're going down the checklist, I think I can confirm that we are pretty much squarely in the middle of Phase 4, but
Cool.
a little bit more than a year from now, it'll really be over. So Phase 4 will continue in June with Ms. Marvel, then Thor: Love and Thunder, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and then in 2023 we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Guardians 3, and the Marvels. At this moment seems to be the end of Phase 4. That doesn't mean that they won't
Don't
necessarily
forget
add
the
some stuff.
Christmas special.
Well, that's true. That's true. As I always say with Star Wars, don't forget the Christmas special.
That's
Uh,
legit.
yeah, it's true. It will be important.
As long as it
no
has
matter what.
B. Arthur, sign me up. That's
Awesome.
all I want.
And Harvey Korman in our
And
corner.
Harvey
We're gonna get
Oh,
we're gonna get
Harvey
everybody. Don't worry.
Korman.
We're gonna get
Oh,
everybody. Yeah.
with
Wow.
Paul, or at least the ghost of Paul Lind. I mean, there's
Oh.
so much great.
Well, it was written by Bruce Valanche, but I feel like the Star Wars Holiday Special is more of a standalone show for maybe for Christmas time. So
Probably.
we'll,
Happy
we'll
Life Day, pal.
yeah, Happy Life Day, Happy Life Day, pal.
Oh,
Everyone's gonna say it now, and I'm just gonna be so happy.
Oh yeah, no, I mean Life Day is really coming around. I think so.
You know what is coming around? Let's flash back to 2021.
Ooh, okay.
Let's start with the three TV properties that we started Phase 4 with, which was WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, and Loki. So the first thing we got in Phase 4 was these three kind of limited series television shows. WandaVision was obviously leading into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Falcon Winter Soldier was leading into Cat 4. And then Loki, we actually were like, season 2 Loki coming out. We should also mention that season 2 Loki's probably going to be in Phase 4 as well.
I would assume, yeah, for sure.
So these three characters are characters we've already seen before. There was no new character introductions, truly. I mean, we kind of got within those properties other characters being introduced. We've got like Lady Loki, and we've got like as Sylvie. We got Monica Rambeau kind of coming into her own power, but it was mostly focused as television shows
yeah, I mean, there's
normally
definitely
do.
a lot of supporting. I mean, John Walker being a very important one from Falcon and Winter Soldier,
it
but
was like
you're right.
I was gonna say the support. Those new characters were like spin-offs. Like we had the core of
bringing
center.
it back around to B. Arthur. It was like getting to meet Maude and the
Maude.
Jeffersons, and all the shows that are going to the characters that we're going to spend more time with later. Absolutely, but to Kate's point, I absolutely agree that it was like, hey, look, here's some friends that are on TV that you would not get a story about Wanda on a movie screen. We were never going to get a Vision and Scarlet Witch movie. And so the fact that we got a series for that, the fact that Sam got a series, and Loki, they figured out a way to give Loki a series even though we saw him die. So kudos for that.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that in a second, because for me, like, I remember watching WandaVision and having worked on WandaVision, and the theme of that kind of being like getting through grief, which is strange that strange. It is weird that when I remember watching the scene at the end credit scene with the Darkhold, and I was like, did that just almost undo that whole plot line? But then I had to remember that the Darkhold does corrupt. The Darkhold is a corrupting influence. So taking it as the stages of grief and acceptance, because even Loki goes through a little bit of that when he watches what his life ends up being. And and kind of in a way mourning his mother and watching himself die. And then Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of both accepting the roles that they have with each other now. Especially Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier went through, we watched him break his programming, and we watched him kind of fight for this idea of Captain America that Sam had to tell him didn't exist, and he had to kind of fight for himself. So with those three kicking off phase 4 in a way, what Eric, what themes do you see that those characters, those character driven dramas, what did they reveal about where the Marvel universe might be headed? And given the fact that we will see those characters again, was that a good choice?
Yeah, well, and I think it's kind of like on the heels of what they did with Phase 3, with having people lose 5 years, people lose loved ones. We had some of our first really major deaths, right? We had the death of Iron Man. We had the sort of disappearance, so to speak, or death-ish of Captain America. So in essence, like, yeah, mourning, and a term I wrote down because I even did notes. I do my homework. When Kate says we're talking theme, we're talking meta, then you do your homework.
Do your
face
homework.
the wrath of Kate. I wrote down.
Yeah, look, I'm like Larry King. I need to walk in having not read the book. I haven't seen the movie. I think that it's a more natural reaction. That's because you're an academic. That's why you're here. That's why I'm down here in the little box.
That's where me. That's where I usually am. I'm like,
your box is the same size, I would argue, but it's not. Well, I was about to say something horribly crude. I'm redacting that.
Now you're gonna walk softly and carry a big stick. Go ahead.
Living with the ghost. That's something I kept coming back to. That idea of
cool.
Part of mourning is it's like the things you lost, but another part of mourning is like the things that stay with you, whether you want them to or not. And I think that to me has always been a really powerful theme in some of my favorite plays and movies and books, is the idea of like the past sort of sticks with you, and that really popped in a lot of titles. Looking at those first ones you mentioned, obviously, like WandaVision, the most obvious, where literally she's living with the ghost.
Right, literally. And that moment in episode 3 when she looks at him and he's dead, it's the dead version of him, and it was startling.
Yeah, and it's, I remember it's not just mourning someone, because also part of mourning is, let's say, mourning the life you think you were going to have. And that to me was what was right. The future you don't get to, the future that will never happen. Right. And so that idea, and that's the stuff that really made WandaVision stick. And I love that, I thought that last episode, one of the few times I predicted something correctly, I think in all our Marvel talks, was that last moment, which was in essence, she had to let it all go. And I mean, you didn't have to be, the recast genie in Aladdin too, in order to predict that. But the truth is, like, she is literally living with ghosts. That shield is a ghost, and a heavy, heavy burden to hold on to. And I've talked before, I do think that I wish they dug into the themes of that show better with Winter Soldier and Falcon, because there's a lot there that they just barely skim the surface of.
But you did get the bank manager.
So, yeah, I know, with the banker, which as you all know, I'm such a deep fan of that character, because it's everything that could have been and should have been and wasn't in one character. But yeah, no, I think, and you'll find beyond those initial wave of Phase 4, Living with the Ghost, look at the Eternals, look at all of these. And they all kind of go back to that. Almost all of them go back to it pretty cleanly.
Well, and you have to think about, yes, we're focused on Phase 4, but nobody has lived with a ghost more than Steve Rogers, who then goes on to become a ghost himself. But just this specter of Peggy, and you think about. It's in Winter Soldier where he goes to visit her in the hospital and she's old, right? And then it's Civil War where he goes to the funeral. I think I've got those right.
Yes.
But
yes, and then it's the Civil War, and not Civil War. It's the Age of Ultron when Wanda gives him the greatest fear, and it's we could go home, and then he turns and everyone's gone.
Right.
and he's
Yeah,
left
right,
alone.
exactly. So and that's sort of, I mean, look, that's something, and again, he's not necessarily in the earlier phases, but when you think about the basis for Peter Parker as a
Mhm.
comic book character, it's literally he's a superhero because of a ghost, because of
Yeah.
what he didn't do right, and he doesn't want there to be more of them. So, but I think it is very prevalent, and I mean, Wanda's story is so complicated, and it's almost like after Doctor Strange and in the Multiverse of Madness, it's like, oh yeah, you can really spend more time with her and just figure out, what's going on, because it's like it's not just the fact that she wanted her kids, And when we did our second Doctor Strange after show, light spoiler in that, we talked about how she didn't really go for Vision, but it's almost like if she'd
Yeah.
gotten her kids, then it's probably like, all right, now where's the universe where I can go and grab Vision from? Because I've gotten the one thing that I need. Let's go ahead and go get the other.
That's an interesting take on it, because I also was like, she never watched her kids die because they never really existed. I mean, when you watch somebody die twice and then a third time when you kind of let them go, the rule of three, Eric is a screenwriter. Um, but with that, she never, with her kids, she never, because she never watched them live, she never really watched them die. And she actually
Mm.
left the room before they disappeared. So I think that's what the Darkhold attached itself to. It's like, she can talk herself out of Vision being alive, but she can't really talk herself out of hearing her kids. And that's so visceral of, having your kids call for you and like, mommy, I need your help type of shit. Um, but also like Falcon and Winter Soldier, they didn't really deal with it, but I think by episode 5 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, Steven is their ghost that they're both dealing with. Of,
Yeah, yeah.
Falcon trying to live up to this idea, knowing that he can't and that he shouldn't is the whole point. Given the
Well,
other
just to
topics and
just
the
to
other
throw something
theming.
in there for a second is that also, like, Isaiah Bradley represents this sort of living ghost.
Yeah.
That it's like he never got
Hmm.
his opportunity, and look what happened. And just it's really that the notion of that shield. That show is so much about that shield, and it's not the one shield, obviously, because Isaiah Bradley would have had a different one, but just the idea that it's all the things that get left behind along the way. Like if you were to sort of map out what it takes for Sam Wilson to become Captain America, one, he gives the shield back because he's like, I don't want it, but also Isaiah Bradley, in the 50s, I believe is what they set it up, and
Mhm.
Steve
It was
ending up in
Korea.
the
It was the
ice, and
Korean War.
yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think there are all sorts of figurative ghosts, but also literal along the way, and they don't necessarily need to be dead. Like
Right, right.
Isaiah Bradley, very
Yeah.
much alive.
And when he gives the shield away, right? That the one of the most striking images from all the Marvel series and movies, the shield covered in blood.
Yeah.
Say
Yeah.
what you will about Disney, but that stuck.
Well, I'm
Like,
pretty
Disney.
sure that Disney's working
oh no,
on
right? They moved the
CG.
blood away,
They're
right?
they're
Yes.
gonna they're gonna turn it into Smucker's grape jelly so that it's not so offensive. It'll
Cut to
it'll
the
just
shot
be
of the body holding a Smucker's
yeah.
jar.
He's using the shield to slice sandwiches, actually. So
What's amazing about those moments, though, like, there's a lot more in earlier Marvel properties and earlier Marvel phases. We were dealing with aliens and robots as the main
yeah.
enemy, and these we're getting more and more where it's like we're dealing with humans. And when you're dealing with other people, you kind of have to talk about the morality of how many you kill, and not just as collateral damage, but as an active action. So I think that the more that Disney and Marvel keeps getting more comfortable with the amount of death they have to do, I think that's why they were able to do Thanos, because it's like, oh, it's aliens, you can kill as many of those as you want, and no one really cares. Like, as opposed to something like Civil War, or even Age of Ultron, where it's like this, they tried to get as many people out as possible so that there wasn't a lot of collateral damage. But of course, later they do talk about the fact that there was a ton of collateral damage when it fell.
Right, right, right.
So, I think consequence is a theme it was prevalent in all in phase 2 and phase 3 as like a spurt, like just to help kind of like push the theme a little bit further along and push the characters a little further along. Obviously, the further along we go, consequences will happen, but it's the consequence of not looking at those ghosts, the consequence of not dealing with your pain, especially when it's easier when you have powers to maybe just barrel forward, because a lot of the previous ones were just like the Avengers were just like barrel forward and deal with your pain. I think Hawkeye's a good example of that, being like the only original Avenger that we saw get a new series. And it's like he's going deaf in one ear, and he's watching his kids grow up, and he's not an active Avenger anymore, but he's still like haunted by these themes and having to train a new version of himself.
Well, and think about how we just recently met maybe one day he'll be an Avenger. In the comics, he was a West Coast Avenger, but we get to meet Mark Spector, who we see exactly what happens when you don't deal with the ghosts and the pain and the suffering.
Yeah.
You big surprise, you actually split into 3 distinctive personalities to try and cope with it if you don't actually deal with it. So, but to sort of what you were saying, the idea of the stakes being more tangible, I think when, to think about it just from a bullet point standpoint, to follow up Thanos with almost anyone seems like, oh boy, it's going to be really hard to have a big bad. But at some point, I don't, it might even be phase 5. At some point, Galactus is going to show up and he's going to try and eat the planet. And that's going to be like, no, it's not everybody in the universe. No, I'm just eating your planet.
I'm just you.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what's going on in the Kree homeworld. Yeah, I'm not going to eat that. That wouldn't taste good. But Earth would be delicious. Yeah, Eric's getting
ready.
It's like Orson Welles sitting down for some delicious frozen peas.
Yeah. Do you think they'll do Galactus? Because what was weird is like I thought the same thing, and this is going off topic, but then I rewatched Doctor Strange, and then I'm like, Dormammu's kind of doing the eat the planet thing.
I mean, I think that it's not your first Fantastic Four movie, but that's the Fantastic Four story that you need to tell. You definitely need to have Galactus. You'll also, along with it, comes the Silver Surfer. And
if I never see Doctor Doom ever again, I would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be. I would be shocked if he wasn't the.
Because he's such a great character. Like
he is.
I love Doctor Doom in the comics, and they have whiffed 3 times with that. Like,
I mean, the Roger Corman one is still the strongest.
And you and I've talked about how the first Fantastic Four is the best Fantastic Four.
The Roger Corman one.
Yeah.
I only semi-ironically say it from a storytelling standpoint. It accomplishes what it's capable of.
Right. And
the Fan-Four-tastic, the Josh Trank one, that like misses on every level.
It's stunning. And then, right. And how do you give great actors, like, how do you turn them into terrible actors? Like, that's a real talent.
It's why you screen test actors together to make sure that it actually works. It's like, good actors.
Make sure they have the chemistry.
But anyway. So
one thing I also was thinking, like, the heavy cost of their gifts. And pardon me, I'm going to clear my throat for a sec.
Go for it. Da 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 da.
Let me clear my throat.
I'm back and stronger than ever.
Love it. That's phase 5.
Right, clearing the throat.
Back and stronger than ever.
Back and stronger. No, I like clearing the throat. It's really narrow cast.
Yeah.
So the idea of like the survivor's guilt, was something that kind of came to mind as well. Like a thing, and this might be more the back half of the current phase, but like the Eternals.
Yeah.
That moment that definitely got some controversy, and you can understand why when they're at Hiroshima and in essence just breaking down and crying because they just kind of let this thing happen. Yeah. And I think, like, weirdly enough, I'm going to jump over to DC for 5 seconds here.
Whew,
so right. Batman vs Superman, which I am no fan of and few are, but that one moment that I actually thought could have been interesting, almost was interesting, is when Lex had that dude blow up in the courthouse and Superman is freaking out because he is the only one who's going to survive that blast. which means he is, usually it's Superman arrives after the blast, but in this case, it happens with him watching, and he's the only one in that room who's going to survive.
And he knows it.
Right. And that moment I thought was actually pretty powerful. Again, the movie is
no, but I mean,
50
think
Shades
about
of Garbage.
But
think about the
like
first
a
act
broken
of
clock can be right twice a day.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Why?
Unless it's slow, Kate, and then it's never right.
But then it's not. I guess it is broken still, huh?
See? Aha!
A stopped clock.
A
is right
stopped
twice a
clock.
day.
Yeah.
There it
But
is.
what I would say is that think about the first act of Endgame and how everyone
Yeah,
has
yeah.
survivor's guilt, and that's not the phase that we're focused on here, but that lingers for everyone
Right.
who was blipped, but everybody who held down the fort for those 5 years. Just the
Yeah.
idea of what why didn't I get blipped, because it's so random. Who was there? Wasn't like I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, because it didn't matter where you were, it was just
Yeah.
happened. So and that's the support group in the beginning of Endgame. It's very telling, and it's not just because they're Mets fans. That's
Yeah,
not
right,
the
right.
reason why. But that's a big
We-
part. It's a very
Christian
big
and
part.
I are part of a Met support group as
Yeah.
is.
I like it.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, this is, not to get too serious, but honestly, like
This is a pretty
reconnecting with
serious
people
topic.
now in 2022, like literally me and a friend from work who physically hadn't seen in a while because none of us were there.
Right.
And literally we see each other and we're talking about the past couple of years and who we lost. And
Yeah.
it was like, it's as if we fucking came
wow.
back from war. I mean, that's and again, as someone who
Yeah.
never served in the military, obviously, what someone goes through there, it doesn't even hold a candle to that. But that sense of like, you haven't seen someone in a while and literally trying to ascertain who's still in their life. Like
Yeah.
that is something like usually, even at my age, and I'm pushing 50, like 2 years, usually you don't have to ask those questions, right? 2020 to 2022, you do. So all of a sudden, like these movies, like history deepened them
Yeah.
just by the timing. Those moments early in Endgame, like when you watch it after the pandemic, it's a very different experience. And
Interesting.
it chills you. And I've watched them a bunch. My kids love these films too, so they're more prone to rewatch the same ones. And I'll tell you, like before, after pandemic, very different experience watching Endgame.
Wow.
And in some ways, a bit of cold comfort watching it now, and especially the idea that they come back.
I don't
Sometimes
think
they
I've
come back,
watched
but
Endgame since pandemic for that reason, actually.
I haven't, because I saw
cuts
it
down the fun a little.
I saw it like 4 times between theaters and like
Yeah.
a Q&A with the Russos. So I was like, well, I spent
way to name drop that.
Yeah, well, please. It was at the Writers Guild, so believe me. But in any case, it was just like I spent half a day watching it. But what always stuck me, sort of what we're talking about in terms of Survivor's Guild, is just watching Scott run to his house, Scott Lang, and just
Oh, yeah.
what happened, and the look that the kid gives him, like, you fucking asking me, where is everyone? You know what I mean? He just looks at him with disgust.
Oh, the little kid
like,
on the bike.
Yeah, the kid on the bike. Yeah, and
Like,
I
I
haven't,
can't
I
even
haven't,
talk about it.
I literally haven't seen the movie in years, and just the look that kid gives him, and it's like, hey, I'm Ant-Man. Everybody loves me. Oh, that kid does not love me.
Not a fan.
Yeah,
Not a fan.
Yeah.
Well,
Keep
no,
going.
I was gonna say there was one joke that I saw about all this shit. Sorry, all this poop.
I mean, I already
and
used the F word, and I'm sorry,
did I.
Ivan. I know how you feel about it.
all this cock was in essence. I saw Mr. Science Theater live. I took my younger son to that, which was so fun. And at one point, they brought out the original Joel.
Yeah.
And he comes out, and the joke is it was a time machine, and he pops in from however many years ago.
Yeah.
And mind you, we're all in the audience in masks, and he just stops at one point and looks at us, and he's like, "What's going on with them? Like, did something happen?" And they're like, "Oh, Joel, we got a lot to catch up on." And it was the perfect joke for the most horrible thing we've all dealt with. Like,
Yeah.
but it was like pitch perfect. I'm like, yeah, if you showed up in the middle of this, my God. what you
Yeah,
missed.
no, I mean, I've thought about that. When you're just
Yeah.
like, if you're watching like a sporting event and you see people in the stands have masks on, some do, some don't. But the idea of like, magically sending like an image like that to somebody back, I don't know, however many years ago, and be like, wait, why is everybody, what's with that? Like, why is everybody dressed like that?
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry. But I think that loss and ghosts, it's really like such a part of all of these characters. And when you're somebody like Thor, who we're about to see this summer, I mean, I don't know that we've established exactly how old he is, but when you just think about
Give or
I mean,
take 5,000 years
yeah.
with
So,
Loki and Dark
but
World.
like
That was the only part of that movie I
the
remember.
first 4,990, pretty good. And then the last like 10, it all went to shit. His dad died. His brother died. Asgard
Mom
is
died.
gone. Mom
Asgard
died. Yeah.
died.
And it's just like, oh man, I loved the first 4,900 years. No wonder he became Bro Thor, which is, I believe, what we should call him.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're probably not going to spend that much more time with that Thor. I assume that that's going to be a really big part of just sort of like dealing with the fact that and I mean, even Tony's gone now,
Yeah.
and I mean and Natasha, I mean, so he just continues to lose people, whereas before that it really, it seemed like a charmed life. The
Yeah.
party Thor from What If was really who he was before the first movie.
Yeah, and it was nice to kind of go back to What If. Oh, What If? Right, we
Yeah,
did not
that's,
do
I
that in
guess,
Phase
yeah,
4.
because of when it was released. I mean, those stories sort of exist outside of it, but they're all sort of, they really tend to deal with stories that are, relevant to Phase 4.
Yeah,
It
and
turned
it's
out to not be that important to Doctor Strange too, but I guess it fits into the phase. Yeah.
I think it's because it exists outside, but you get to see a different side of every character, and it's like,
Yeah.
what if one thing changed? But what I did want to talk about and briefly was Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Because when that movie came out, it was really the first time we got a new character. It was an origin story for a new character, but it wasn't a discovery of power as opposed to other origin stories that we have received, or a discovery of responsibility as we got through most of Phase 1. This was an origin story that I thought was really steeped in generational trauma, which is what my generation is kind of attacking right now. The millennial generation is attacking. And how does
Just
the
be glad you didn't
father,
have to put up with Y2K. Let me tell you.
but it's how does the father deal with the grief and the ghosts, and how does it affect the child? It wasn't, he was still accepting the loss of his mother and being a witness and not being strong enough, but it felt like more the story was between Shang-Chi and his father, of how to handle that grief the best, and what to do with having the ability to try to fix something, and in a way like very Darkholdy. That little portal, which I don't know if they're going to do anything more with that. Please put in the comments that I might read. If you
Well,
think
I'll
that
read, because anybody comments on a video, I need to see what it is. It's
I will probably read this.
Usually someone doesn't like someone on the show, but I think
God, I
like
hope
us.
this time it's not me.
Well,
this is gonna be the one where it's like
what you were saying. Like, also don't forget about the such an important part of that story in Shang-Chi is how his sister got really just in the crossfire of like, I'm gonna run away. I'm totally coming back. I am not coming back. And just the way that they each
and betrayal,
sort of dealt with
like
that.
that
Yeah,
betrayal. But Eric, what did you feel like? Because we've been through a lot of these, not only with Marvel, but with DC. We've been through a lot of origin stories. And how do you think this origin story, with the themes that we've talked about, did it add a new theme, or how do you think it handled this type of origin story? And how do you think it twisted the origin story to make it a little bit more different?
Well, and I think it's funny because as we talk about, realize, so Shang-Chi has a foot in Phase 1 on that end, a reluctant hero, and not an anti-hero, but more like
Reluctant hero is accurate.
Yeah, he's trying. He really doesn't want to deal with this, but then a foot in Phase 4. the trauma of losing his mom on his watch, his dad, who obviously, uh, as as attractive as his father may be and elegant, he's a killer, and he knows that. He's been trying to avoid this side of his life, and yet those early scenes of him working out, beyond just showing his, admittedly very tight bod, it
I don't know what
also
you're talking about.
yeah, it's one of those scenes. Instead of covering my kid's eyes, I cover my wife's eyes when we're watching it. Men
Bloody
don't look.
shield, Shang-Chi working out.
Yeah, men don't look like that, honey. Real men don't look like that. That's a robot. That's all CG. It's all ball
Is
bearings.
this CG?
Eric has a sign in his kitchen: "Real men eat carbs."
Love
it.
I have
That's
a
a
sign
sign
on
in
my
my
mirror
kitchen.
every
And
morning.
I don't
that says the
disagree,
same
by the
thing.
way. Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you.
but the idea that he's still working out, by the way, like right, the first scenes we see him, so it's clear that he hasn't quite let this thing go yet. And then, of course, that scene on the bus, which was
Or he feels like he needs to be ready.
Yeah, right. Just in
That
case.
it
That's a
will
good
come
point,
for
right?
him, that he can't keep running,
Yeah, at
even
some
though he
point.
wants to.
Yeah, you're right. And then on the bus, he has to turn and face it. And that scene on the bus to me was probably, for my money, the best choreographed action scene we've had, maybe in any Marvel film.
Well, and
You
also
know,
when you think about like the first time we see the that we as an audience see someone's abilities, and
yeah,
sometimes it's Peter doesn't realize that he can stick to walls, things like that. But when you get this, and it's like that's at a point in the movie where he
knows.
knew he could do all those things.
yeah.
He doesn't have the rings yet. It's not anything like that. So and I think that's Aquafina's character is so important in that moment, because she's us. She's like, what? Like, you could do all that.
Or the guy in the back who actually could be me. It's
Yeah.
like, yo, bro, no, you got this.
Yeah, I loved him.
Yeah.
Who was also in
the guy who's got he's filming it for YouTube or
yeah, and I
Insta
believe
or
he was
whatever,
also in Spider-Man.
yeah, the same guy happens to be there, which it's almost like
Oh, he's everywhere. He's in Succession. He's the go-to
Yeah,
guy.
so the
that guy's
witness.
everywhere. Yeah.
And I also think that they in Doctor Strange, the fight scene between Mordo and Strange in that little crevice, I think they took we can do more interesting choreography. Like, they liked the bus choreography. Let's just do this in a crevice.
Yeah.
They didn't have to have the crevice. They could have just had it on the thing.
He couldn't get out of the crevice. That to me was like, oh no, you got out of this crevice. That's my one power.
When they're attached to each other.
But when Steven leaves him,
he's like, no.
It's like,
and he's like, wait,
it's like, what, you can't fly? Yeah.
No.
I didn't think of that until you said it.
He might not have the boots of vaulting, the vaulting boots of blah blah blah.
It's there could be a reason for it.
I hate when I don't pack those. I always leave them. I'm going to Philadelphia this week, and I probably need those.
Especially if you're going to go watch the Sixers, So.
Also, it was nice to have in Shang-Chi the role not only of the hero, but the role of the supporting cast is slightly shifting in phase 4, especially.
We mentioned Wong before. He's the Sorcerer Supreme now. What bigger, it's Sam becoming Captain America, for lack of a better word, he's really he was a sidekick as Falcon, I think that you're definitely seeing people get promoted,
or just the idea of it's not just a romantic sidekick, as for the first phase, and even the second phase was like the kind of how it affected your romantic sidekick, but they're friends and they're family. Awkwafina is almost like a sister, and then you do have Shang-Chi's sister. Wong is kind of like a brother, and then you have Spider-Man. Yeah, keep going.
I was going to say, Wong and Doctor Strange too. That's maybe one of the best relationships in the entire MCU at this point.
They really should put the morning after the spells.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And they use Wong so smartly. It's such a good point you're bringing up, Kate. It's like you're a junior varsity team and you get knocked up to varsity. Even Kat Dennings, who she was great in WandaVision, and would love to. It's weirdly enough, like my son apparently not a fan. I don't get it, but that's
Oh,
him.
interesting.
But
He's
he
gonna have to
said,
binge Two
I
Broke
like.
Girls, and then he'll really appreciate her.
Oh yeah, he's like, oh no, it's much funnier with thinly veiled racist jokes with a laugh track. That's when she really shines. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Two Broke Girls. Though I do like Whitney Cummings quite a bit, for the record. But I think, like, he said, like, oh yeah, she's kind of fun here, and so, like, giving these characters a bit more agency, so they're not just sort of comic relief, but
Yeah.
rather you give a bit of dimension and shape to them, and really it's fun watching. My wife just watched Doctor Strange all the way through
The
for the
first one?
first time. Yeah, in preparation for the new one. And Wong in that one, it's fun seeing where he began,
Yeah.
because remember early on he didn't speak at all. Like he
Very.
Oh yeah.
and with each
I
film he's become more vocal and funnier and
He's also
ironic.
he's very funny. So to even think
He's
back to him
great.
not talking, you're like, what a waste. Yeah.
what I was, and I recently rewatched it as well, and what I really enjoyed about it was I misinterpreted a moment from that movie with Wong, and I misinterpreted the fact that when he's like, "Try me, Beyonce," and he's like, "You had to have heard of her. She's a big artist." And then the next cut scene when he's stealing from the library, he's listening to Single
He's listening
Ladies,
to Single Ladies. Yeah.
and it's he really didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
And I misinterpreted it the first time of like he did and he was listening to her. Of course he knew who she was because she's a big artist. But the fact that like it's like this guy is like talking to me and like naming these one named pop singers to make fun of me, but who is Beyonce?
Right.
And that he really started like that was a change that Strange was making of kind of like infecting joy into the mystic arts. That it wasn't like you have to, be the gatekeeper and that, right? It's like you can be more flexible, you can be more fun. It is like a dance that he's doing with this magic.
And then karaoke later. I mean, think of
and
it
then. Karaoke later.
Great point. Great point. Wow.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. So the guy didn't know Beyonce seemingly, and then at the end is singing Hotel California.
Yeah. What?
Drunkenly, by the way.
Look, everybody knows Don Felder. It's fine.
Yeah.
The best.
And also, if you could have a Wi-Fi password and not know Beyonce, I don't know. People are weird. What I do want to get to is Spider-Man, because that was almost a reverse of yay. Almost a reverse of, and I know we're running short on time, so I'm sorry if we didn't make it to all of the meta topics. We didn't make it to Eternals, which is a lot of ghosting, which is her being trapped between the man in the past and the man in her future, which might actually be an accurate way of describing what we've been talking about for 45 minutes, of like trying to deal with the past while trying to deal with the future at the same time, the ghosts and the potential, because potentials are ghosts that you just haven't lived yet. Which is multiversal in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to talk about Spider-Man, Eternals, done. But to talk
I do have all those
Spider-Man,
Happy Meal toys in the other room.
The
Eternals have we do.
We did.
Remember I occasionally bring them up. Like
he brings them up
Happy Meal toys.
Yeah, and we did like 3 shows talking about Eternals, but we can
always
revisit it. And,
it's okay.
Yeah,
we're good.
Fine now revisiting Eternals. It's cool. But Spider-Man was a reverse on the origin story, because we've already got Spider-Man. But the second that I think people figured it out, the moment she said with great power comes great responsibility, because we just assumed that it already happened because the uncle wasn't in the picture. Mm-hmm. But then we're like, of course it hasn't, because, that's not where, Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man. He has the powers of a spider. He has the suit, but how do you become the hero that is willing to sacrifice things? And that's when I think most audiences got clued in and the waterworks started, was when you realized we were about to lose Aunt May, and Aunt May was going to take that fall. Which another show we will talk about why. I just realized that naming our universe 616 probably wasn't the best idea given that particular change.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the 616 backlash has not been bigger. I know it exists,
I know
but
it exists too.
I said to you after we walked out, I'm like, look out, that's going to be the thing that people have the
The
problem
big one.
with, because our understanding was that the MCU was a different number and the 616 is the comic book. But yes,
Yeah.
I agree with you though. That moment, I mean, look, there's a ton of surprises in that movie. I didn't know that we were going to lose Aunt May, and I didn't know that that moment was really going to be the oh wow, with great power comes great responsibility. And I get the takeaway that, oh no, we didn't just not know about Uncle Ben, he didn't have one.
No.
The other Spideys talk about their Uncle Ben, and he's not like, oh yeah,
He
yeah, I
hasn't
have that
talked
too.
about him at
Yeah,
all. And I
yeah,
don't
right.
think we like
They didn't even
realize
have a
that.
passing reference. Like,
No,
was
No.
there?
there's like a general in one of the earlier movies. He's like, with everything he's talking about May, everything she's been
Right.
through, but
He didn't
and
specify
I
her losing
never
a
interpreted that
husband.
mentions it.
in the moment. I interpreted that like, oh, like losing Uncle Ben, but he never talked about it. And at some point, it probably became a conscious decision. But
He doesn't even have Uncle Ben Rice. I
no,
heard
he
No.
doesn't. No, not
Which
in
is
in
that
that
also
universe.
universe.
sad. Not in the
Yeah.
same way. He probably has it now that he's living on his own in New York, and I don't know how he's going to do that
Yeah.
on the
Right.
salary that
Right.
he makes, doing a GED. Um, but
It's just
there's
Uncle Ben and ramen. That's
Uncle
all he
Ben
has.
Robin.
By
There's
the
a
way, that rice is now called Ben's Original, please. And
Ben's Original.
Oh, that's
Right,
right.
right,
I'm
right, right,
sorry.
right.
lost the
Like
caricature
Sorry.
of yes. So
like the
Um,
aunt who shall not be named anymore.
the
Same
aunt who
thing.
shall not be named
No.
in the
Yeah.
pancake
Aunt
industry.
Sarah.
Mrs. Butterworth is still fine though. We still
Hell
love
yeah.
Mrs. Butterworth. Yeah.
But what in terms of the first phase being with great power comes great responsibility, which is a line from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's the
And
line,
and
really.
to kind of come back and end our theming with, where we did get a character origin in reverse in a way of
Yeah.
what it means to sacrifice and the consequences of that sacrifice, and literally kind of creating your own ghost. So I mean, Eric, I know you have to go soon, but like what does this reversal also mean for the theming of Marvel going forward?
Well, so yeah, it's interesting. Almost like, and I'd still say it, the idea of living with the ghost. It's in this case, the ghost is his innocence, their innocence.
Ah,
That in essence, in terms of staying kind of on brand with theme, that's what he's mourning early on is like his old life. So even before we lose her, and these are characters who survived who blipped, like, right,
yeah,
all of them blipped, which is
all
why
of
they're
them.
the same age. But they didn't really lean into that as much in this movie, but rather this idea of, wasn't it better before all this,
Because they could
and
just keep going. They're like, cool, we
yeah,
have our whole lives ahead of us,
right.
type of thing.
But the idea is like, now that the secret's out of the bag, like, it's
Well, and
like
that's the thing, you referenced, I think his name's
no way home, right?
Dr. West earlier, is the idea of like, was that really the way it had to happen? And Steven's like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he went through the millions, but everybody else is just like, really, this is what we've got now. Yeah, I think it's
But you didn't get the girl.
yeah,
So he's like,
but he never does.
I might have the
Yeah.
crappy hair, but you didn't get the girl either.
Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch does have great hair though. So Stephen Strange in particular.
Great hair.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I
Anyway,
think
I don't know
it
if we
was
I don't know if we need
interesting.
to let Eric go.
We probably do.
We can tidy up the
I
conversation.
might need to be a ghost myself right now.
You want to
I'm
ghost this
sorry.
So
conversation?
people will find you at Count Eric Connor.
They will.
And
Damn it.
of course.
Thanks for joining us today, Eric. I really appreciate it. I was been really excited to talk about this stuff with you.
Oh
so.
yeah, and the conversation continues, right? I mean, we scratched the surface a bit, but there's so much more. So
yeah, look, there's
thank you
going to
for
be
joining me for the party.
plenty more times where we can continue this part of the conversation. But but now we'll say goodbye to Eric, and it's just me.
And it's now just you.
Now it's much, yeah. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, this was fun, but now it's a lot less exciting, this conversation. But
oh no, I've been wanting to talk about this type of thing for over a year now.
Yeah,
so I'm glad that I pushed for it and was like, hey, let's just try it.
No, I mean it's fun to sort of have these meta topics, these big topics is really what I mean, and that you sort of more all encompassing, because when you have these off weeks where you're like, the dust is still settling from both Moon Knight and Doctor Strange. We're not getting anything new for a little bit, but pretty soon Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan will be in our lives and Thor will be back. But it's good to kind of take a moment and reflect in this way. So it's always interesting to have these conversations. And of course, we would like people to leave their comments in the chat and let us know what they
Please.
thought. But we now that Eric is gone, I don't need to rush you along for any reason. If you wanted to tidy up, I just wanted to make sure that people knew that we'll be back with some special shows in the next few Wednesdays. Some of them live, but the next couple will probably be recorded because I'll be on the road. But we will be here for you. We're like all the friends, even Phoebe. We will be there for you.
I'm probably the Phoebe in this situation.
Yeah, I would like to be Joey, but I'm definitely Chandler.
You're definitely Chandler.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Eric is definitely Ross. It's he would like to be someone else, but he's definitely Ross. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah. So it was also interesting to do Moon Knight and Doctor Strange kind of back to back together ish. Because I was just thinking when you said that, I'm just like, it's interesting that they kind of don't. Because we're gonna get Miss Marvel and like Thor's gonna premiere like in the middle of their run, and they're kind of like they haven't spaced it out or figured out how to space it because they're still going off of like when the best time to release the movies are, and not really releasing the television shows in their like off period so that they like match and make sense. And I'm wondering why they're not doing that, or because they can, because it's just streaming. It's not.
Well, yeah, and it's also, it could just be, from a business standpoint, you'll have peak interest in both things at the same time. You'll have more people that are interested in a movie that are watching a show, and more people are going to walk out of the movie theater like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of Marvel shows. What's going on? So I think that they're just maximizing the potential. Look, it's Disney. If there's anything they understand, it's marketing and promotion. So I'm sure. But yeah, I do think it's interesting at how often it happens where it's like, oh, it comes out like the same week as the finale, which is what happened with Doctor Strange. Like,
right.
Although I guess for most people, they saw the finale and then they went either the next day or 2 days later. Kate and I were fancy and we saw it in the middle that week between 5 and 6 of Moon Knight. But, not everybody gets to be us. I'm sorry.
No, but what we do get to talk about is where we're going to head, because now we are right in the median aspect of it. And as we've spent the last hour talking about, it seems like it's this phase in particular. And I'm really glad now that we've gone through it, that we've taken the time with all of these properties and all of these characters to be like, who's left? What are the ghosts that they're dealing with? And what are the kind of consequences of dealing with these emotions, and being kind of not just, these heroes are not just tempted by the by an outside bad guy, but by their internal trauma demon bad guy. So Wanda being tempted by, I need to stop this grief, so I'm going to take over the multiverse, or in Shang-Chi, the father going, I need to get my wife back, and this is the only way to do it, and the only person that can stop me is maybe my son.
Yeah, and
who is also dealing with that
with Wanda. It's like, I'm going to take over this town in New Jersey, and then it's like, oh, okay, I saw how that went. Now I'm going to take over the entire multiverse, because clearly everything in New Jersey went well.
Yeah, great. And or learning from her mistakes in New Jersey.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it was nice that it was like, that she kind of called out Doctor Strange a little bit, of just like, you kind of like sentenced half the world. And you're the hero, and I just take over 45 people in a small town, and I'm a villain.
Great point. Yeah.
And I think that was the greater point she was making. I'm not saying that she was right, but also most villains, all good villains and all great villains, are able to kind of twist themselves to be the hero.
Well, and I always say that your best villains, when they start mapping out their plans, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, you got me. Yeah, actually, that sounds right. Killmonger is a great example. Where he starts from, you're like, yeah, and then it gets to a point, and then they have to see what they're doing as like they're right. I mean, Thanos till the end, the multiple Thanos, he's like, no, this was the best thing to do for the universe, for the
Yeah.
galaxy, for
Or
everyone
even
in existence.
Ronan,
Yeah, right, exactly.
this kind of immovable, and I think another in terms of I'd like to do future shows and talk about the kind of characterization in phase 2, the immovable object versus the kind of fluidity of the heroes,
Yeah,
because like Mordo is the immovable object to Doctor Strange's flexibility, and you know, on the Ronan is the immovable object, and he's literally taken down by, you know, dance off.
yeah. That's sometimes you just don't see it coming, you know.
No. Um, but we're at the halfway point now.
Yeah,
And where do you think we've got a bunch of new characters, and then we've got a bunch of characters that can return. And then now that we've opened up the multiverse, we have access to a plethora of characters. And then we have the looming threat of Kang the Conqueror, which
yeah.
hasn't been brought up in a while. um, we've got Black Knight that is going to show up. We've got a bunch of hints at
Yeah, and I mean,
future
also, like, Blade will be part of the
Blade.
MCU, so yeah.
And I think we've got a little tease, regardless of whether it's original cast or a new cast. X-Men have now entered the MCU.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, and with this, you know, dealing with the demons and dealing with the ghosts, we have to start looking toward the future now. We've looked at the past and we've dealt with the failings of the past and our failings, or the hero's failings. Where's the future headed? Where's the rest of phase 4 going to go, and into phase 5?
You know, I think it's obviously it'll be so interesting to watch it unfold, but it's, you know, clearly we were building towards Thanos. We were building towards Endgame. I mean, we saw Thanos at the end of the first Avengers. You know, I mean, I don't mean the first Avenger, the Captain America movie, the first Avengers movie with all the Avengers in it. Yeah, and we really spent so much time building to that. And I think that at this point, we're not building to just Kang. You know, we're also dealing with whatever the quantum mania is. And you know, we've got the Marvels, we've got sort of this, we've got whatever Secret Invasion is dealing with, because the Skrulls are our friend, don't forget. In the comics, the Secret Invasion was from the Skrulls. So who are the Skrulls helping us from an invasion from? You know what I mean? So I think it's much more consistent with the comic books, in the sense that, like, look, there's a lot of stuff going on, and then you get some crossover, something that's happening in the X-Men. You're going to see how it impacts the Avengers or Spider-Man, but they've got their own problems. And then I think it'll eventually sort of, Kang is looming in a way, but I don't think we're getting to him in any of the movies that we said are coming out in the next year. That doesn't mean that we might not see him. We might see one of the iterations of
Or
him.
an iteration, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think we're going to see anything on that scale, and I'm okay with that. I would, if that's phase 5, I also think that's great, you know, because like I said, it took a long time for us to actually get to Thanos, you know. So
do you think with Doctor Strange and the, especially where Doctor Strange ended in the mid-credit sequence, with there's been an incursion, because incursions were mentioned, but now that they're active, do you think with the incursions being an active force in the MCU that we're going to get Secret Wars?
Yeah, I think that we will get
or a version of it.
We'll get the latter Secret Wars, not the 1985 one where everybody just fought and it was awesome, and Eric and I were kids and we loved every minute of it. But yeah, I think that is going to be sort of dealing with the themes of, you know, what we had from the TVA and Loki, you know, sort of dealing with that, the repercussions of what happened in Loki season 1. I think anything dealing with multiverse, timelines, any sort of movement between those things, I think we will get. But I mean, when you look, it's like a Doctor Strange 3 is not one of the things that we know is coming in the next few years. So I think it's all these are all very small steps towards that. I think I don't know how. I mean, think about how long it was between Doctor Strange 1 and 2. I think we could
Yeah.
see him long before we would get another movie. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I think that the sort of hedging my bets answer is we're gonna get a little bit of everything, and eventually it's going to be Kang. But I don't think Kang is going to be that soon.
Yeah. And we are getting an end to at least pieces of the Guardians of the Galaxy because
Yeah.
Dave Bautista finally talked about the end of Drax the Destroyer and that he's
James
not
Gunn
gonna,
said that he's done.
that
Like
he's
they
done.
did the Christmas special and Volume 3 concurrently.
Yeah,
and
and
he
then that
finished
was
both
it.
of them, and he's got to get back to Peacemaker season 2, which I think he should certainly be focused on. So yeah, but and so
Yeah, but
who
we're
of those
about to lose
characters?
some heroes
Yeah,
from
but who of those characters
phase
are
2.
going to still be around? I mean, we can always get Rocket and Groot.
Mhm.
I mean, we've already lost Gamora, but there's
We have
this.
to finish that.
Yeah, I know exactly. That's that. Look, that story was supposed to have happened sooner, but then they had their James Gunn problem that became less of a problem. But
Yeah.
so the timing of that movie is off by multiple years. So yeah, that's I mean, that story I'm sure was intended to come before Thor's solo movie because
Mm,
of the fact that Thor gets on a ship with the Guardians of the Galaxy at the end of Endgame.
yeah. I would
And
be
they'll deal
curious
with
to
it.
see how they had to like, oh shit, we had to rewrite it and go
Yeah.
into, if the how Thor 4 was affected in the
Yeah,
writing
and
process by that.
hopefully we'll find out at some point, but probably not until after Guardians, when they'll
And
be
also
like, okay,
we can't stress enough that pandemic did shift the schedule.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean
Pandemic shifted everything.
yeah,
Not just the drama, but
we're delayed by everything, but also things moved around so much,
yeah.
in terms of, it'd be interesting to like go back to an article from like 2019 and see what we were supposed to have had by right now, in 2022,
Yeah.
the movies that we should have had already. And
Yeah.
then we probably got something that we wouldn't have gotten yet. So, it would be interesting to see. But I don't know. What do you think, Kate? What do you think is
I
coming next?
Well, I think listening to you speak, an idea occurred to me that something that we haven't dealt with. It's like we're gonna get the next generation of heroes. I mean,
Yeah.
WandaVision also got like kind of like hinted at Wiccan and Speed,
Yeah.
and we're getting like Peter Parker getting the neck, like he's still a younger hero, um, and we're getting Yelena taking over the Black Widow mantle, and we're
Right.
getting Kate Bishop. We're
Kate
getting the
Bishop. Yeah.
next generation of what is their lens of
And
how they look at
we
the
just
world.
met America
We
Chavez,
just met America.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of how does the next generation, especially given the political climate that we're in, which is another episode entirely. If you would like to see that episode, comment below. And it's the idea of, how does each generation take heroism and responsibility? I mean, I think we got Cap with the kind of greatest generation, and then each generation of hero is represented of how they deal with the world around them and how much influence they believe that they have. Do you deal with the little thing, like the ordinary things that you can fix, or how do you take on these big world problems, which we're seeing Generation Z doing, and the younger millennials, with climate change and these big issues that are hitting our future,
Yeah.
and the apathy of an older generation of we've already tried, and when do you give up? And I'm excited for those new heroes to kind of to lay. I think after Kang, we're gonna get the. I think Kang is not going to take as long as Thanos did. I think we're going to get it quicker. Phase 5. I think people are also losing steam, so I think they're trying to get as much content out to condense the process as much as possible, which is why the TV shows are so important. But it's also this idea of level the playing field so that these younger heroes can have their moment, and what they want to talk about. We're kind of finishing what the millennials want to talk about in a way, to talk about generational trauma and generational and consequences and ghosts and and all these different kind of theming, but also the idea of who the hell's in charge of our story. It's who's it, like we get to the TVA and it's like 3 robot
Yeah.
don't look at the man behind the curtain. And then you get to like, and it's like this variant of Kang that's just trying to keep it all together. Or like, who's in charge of the multiverse? Who's in
Right, and
charge of the pruning? Who's
are
in
we going
charge
to
of the
see another Illuminati, even if it's not the
Yeah.
same characters as we had in Doctor Strange 2? You know, I mean, there are, I think that a lot of this would fall under their purview. So yeah, I mean, who's who's watching the Watcher?
Yeah. And it's
All
who
this, yeah.
and who is the one that says, because Clea comes in the end of Doctor Strange and it's like there's an incursion and you should go fix it. But it's like, who's the one who decides who lives and who dies of the two universes? Because in an incursion, one of them has to die. And it's like, who's the one that has to make those decisions? And
Well, I
is
think
that
the answer
even
to all
fair?
your questions is the great and powerful Feige. I mean, that's
Yes.
when
I
when we
am
first started here,
I.
when I was a kid, it was all Stan, even though Stan wasn't that hands on with the comics by that point. But and it's just like Feige knows where it's all going, and he's policing everything, and he's
Yeah.
really tightened the reins, and you can't argue with that success as much as people in Disney like Ike Perlmutter would like to
Yeah.
argue. He basically has a blank check until I guess until one of those checks bounces, but it still hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So,
But it's
yeah,
also who's the one holding the knife. It's
yeah,
Doctor Strange's theme for a personal theme as his character, as he can't always be the one in charge, because I wish and I don't that we got a Donna flashback in the first movie. I think they filmed it and decided not to use it, but it would have
sorry. In which movie? The
Doctor Strange.
Oh, okay, yeah. I see what
His
you mean.
sister,
It's his
because
sister,
it
yeah,
really does like explain a lot of like, I wasn't able to save her, so I became someone who could save everybody. But then
yeah,
I decided not to work in the ER to save people because
yeah,
I didn't want to fail.
yeah. No,
And it's
it's a great point.
he
Yeah,
had to be the one to fight Dormammu and do the time thing, not just because he was the only one that was able to, but like he had to be the one to go and not explain his plan to poor Mordo, who was like left in the dust. He
yeah.
had to be the one to be like, one, and I'm doing it. He had to be the one to like, decide everything. And at the end of this movie, he realizes that that he can trust other people. And I don't think all of the other heroes have gone through that hero's journey, which makes him kind of like Papa Supreme in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways he is, and I think that that's essentially the the literal ending before the credits of the second Doctor Strange movie is let's just
Is he the
say,
patriarch now? Because it used to be
well,
like Captain America / Iron Man.
yeah, but he has his eyes open, slight pun intended, but literally he has his eyes open to his potential and what he can do. And I think that going forward, he's going to be a lot more. I mean, he seems very sure of himself in this movie. That's not the point. But then he was up
He
against
always
something.
is.
Yeah, but there was something that, what he was up against, he really didn't know. He's like, well, I'm going to try the book Vishanti, but we'll see. So, yeah, I think Steven, the next time we see him, it'll be very interesting. I don't think it'll be a Doctor Strange movie. I don't know what of these stories that are coming. I don't know that we see him in the next year, though. I think it's something else is going to time. But who knows we don't know that much about what's happening in the Marvels. It's just assembling those Marvel. Marvel
We don't have a team at this
Captain
moment. I
Marvel.
think Phase 4 is going to end with a team.
Yeah, I think
Because
we do
don't
have to
have
assemble
one.
the new Avengers. Yeah, absolutely.
Or the new whatever the hell,
And we don't know when we're actually getting Cap 4. There's these things that we know we're getting, and not even bringing into it the Fantastic Four and X-Men and stuff like that. Just the characters that we know whose stories are going to continue. We actually don't know when we're going to see that.
Well, here's my X-Men theory. I was actually talking to Happy Cappy about it.
Happy Cappy.
And I think that if we do, it's going to be like in Secret Wars, we're going to get them in another universe. And they're going to come in, and then Secret Wars is going to end, and then it's like, oh, cool, we have these characters now. We go forward with them, yes?
No, I think that what Doctor Strange showed us was the ease with which you can bring in anyone, so that could be the way we get the X-Men. That could be the way, just in the way that their mythology is, the way their backstory is, it would be very hard to start the X-Men at this point in the MCU, and like Charles Xavier opens a school for the first time. Instead it's like, oh yeah, they have all this history in another universe, and look, they'll pick and choose what they want to from what has come before, which is fine.
Spider-Man proved that too, that you can have a character halfway through is like, you don't have to have an origin story for Spider-Man. We know it. We can just keep going.
Yeah, we've seen it. Yeah, exactly.
We've seen it. We can go. We can take him and, he can be sassy and we can establish the character, but not necessarily need to establish.
Wolverine's got metal fused to his skeleton and he heals fast. Don't show it happening to me. I got it. I'm good.
Yeah. So I think a lot of these like early characters were almost like tests for bigger things down the line. Which makes it interesting that Shang-Chi had to have an origin story, but they also flipped it. They also kind of pulled a first Avenger on it. Like he already knew he had the power, but but he was hesitant to use it because of what it meant.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And it was somebody who's like, with great power becomes great responsibility. No responsibility.
Yeah.
But I think that's all we have time for today.
Yeah, but
we've covered quite a bit.
I know, and I'm glad you brought this topic to us, as in Eric and myself, but of course, everyone out there, all of our Marvelites, and the conversation will very much continue as we go along in Phase 4, but also as we
Marvel
have time.
Movie Talk will return.
Yeah, exactly, and as we're able to sort of take our breath for a week here and there and look back at things. But thank you for bringing that to us. And obviously, if people want to continue watching the show, just subscribe at the Blackcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. That is where you can make sure that you'll always get the show. Because sometimes, look, our Thor special episodes won't necessarily be Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you subscribe, you'll always know when they're coming and when they're going. So please do
when they're just chilling.
They're just chilling. And you can, of course, follow me at Christian DMZ. But Kate, let people know where they can find you.
They can follow me at Cornellable on Instagram and TikTok. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, Twitter.
Well,
I know it's weird.
I didn't think you were using it. Okay.
I'm going to start again. I'm going to start now that I'm doing more of these podcasts. And if you are interested in more meta theming story or want us to do a deep dive into a character, I love talking about this stuff. This is why I'm a screenwriter. This is why I love the film industry. I love seeing how these movies delve into my favorite heroes and give them me insight about myself and the world that I live in. I think that's what Marvel offers for people. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Elizabeth Olsen, who is an incredible actress, has a piece in Variety or an interview in Variety where she talks about the value of Marvel films based off of the crew that work on them. So if you are interested in hearing what she has to say in response to people who do not believe that Marvel movies are cinema, I would highly recommend reading that article because she has some really interesting and great stuff to say. So thank you, Liz. But yes, if you want to see more of this, let me know in the comments below or DM me. There I am. I'm never going to get this right on the first try.
I know it's you get used to where it is.
Yeah. It's like putting it, you can never put in a USB right the first time.
No,
it's always upside down.
I still can't. I have a new laptop for like 5 months now, and every time it goes in the wrong way. So yeah. Well, Kate, you steered the ship. You opened the show. You might as well close the show for everyone.
Oh gosh, and thank you so much, Christian, for letting me take over.
Oh, of course, happy to do it.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Eric, and hopefully Michael Shirley and Jeff will join us on future episodes. I will see you next time. And as the great Stan Lee would say, this is so weird doing this. That's not what he says. As the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior.